and boom goes the dynamite.
Happy Friday to everyone. Welcome to the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show in the entire world. This is Daily Dive. I'm your host, Michael Carvelis. It is Friday, November 24, 2023. Time is currently 1:01 p.m. here on the East Coast in Georgia, home of the Swarm. I encourage you, while you're here and while you're getting ready, to head to the link tree in our bio or in the description below. Support the show, click the link tree, go to the Our Store tab. Remember, new logo means new merchandise coming next Friday, a week from today when the season starts is December 1st. Please remember to check out our store, the best in our merchandise. On today's show, I'm going to start off by telling you the next player in the Meta Varsity Top 50 Fantasy Players. Then shortly afterwards, we'll have Adam Levi on to talk all things NLL Top 50, Kieran McArdle, and of course, surprise teams who could do well this year in the NLL. And we have an announcement as well. And then finally, I'll get to a Georgia Swarm preview and blind reveal of our unified standings graphics. First, I do want to let people know that Connor Kelly of the Colorado Mammoth is number 49 on the Meta Varsity Top 50 Fantasy Players coming into the season. Number 50 was Mark Matthews, and I know Connor Kelly just had a sock trick. Will probably be filling in for Ryan Lee, who was obviously not going to be there this year for the Mammoth. But I wonder if they're valuing goals way more than assists, considering Mark Matthews, who gets a ton of those puppies, is number 50, and Connor Kelly is already above him. Should be interesting moving forward. But, enough of that, right? Because when I come back, we're going to go ahead and bring him in. It's Adam Levi. You guys all know him. Works for the NLL. He's a great asset to the league. Always feeds us great information. And we're going to have some announcements and some discussions coming up next. This is Daily Dive. Don't go anywhere. I know you won't. Stay tuned. Once again, welcome back to the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show. This is Daily Dive once again. I do want to mention we have a very special guest on. His name is Adam Levi. You can follow him at Adam Levi NLL on X/Twitter, wherever Elon likes that. Adam, how are you, sir? Welcome back to the show and welcome here to season 2.
Yeah, thank you, and congratulations on surviving season 1 and being able to do a season 2. You really went through the gauntlet there, and it's impressive to see you're alive.
Right. It definitely couldn't have gone any better. Like in terms of interactions, guests like you, I think you came on multiple times. There was just so many great things that happened, and you were a part of that. We appreciate you as well. But forget all that, right?
Yeah, I'd say that what happened in the past is in the past, and moving forward, it's all about learning from the past and moving forward and becoming a better, more knowledgeable human being. And I think that we can all do that. And I know that you've got some really hot takes, and maybe we can temper them a little bit, as we go on and build our relationship here. And, may I say the news? May I?
I was going to say, you might as well. That sounded pretty good to me.
I guess I have decided that I've wanted to every Friday keep Mike in check. Is that a fair thing to say? To keep you in check a little bit, bring a little bit of reason and calm to the show. You're very passionate, and I will say that is the thing that people like about you the most, how passionate you are. Maybe what you're saying is a bit controversial, but it's the passion that you come with that is not something you see from most people, and that should be rewarded in that sense. But hopefully, me being here on Fridays can bring things back to reality a little bit.
I love the way you introduced that. That was awesome. I do want to let people know, since you did mention that part, every Friday we're going to be doing our previews, and Adam will be on to discuss some games that are upcoming, and we'll have more on the Friday slate that we will announce next week. But Adam will be here, and we are very excited to have you, sir. And again, I appreciate that, because that is such an amazing thing. That, as I know how important you are to the growth of this sport and in this league, and specifically, I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
So what I will say is that, I know that learning from people is an important thing, and you've admitted, and you say it all the time on the show, how new you are to lacrosse, and so that is important to keep in check. But I also know, and in no way would I ever call myself a mentor with the amount of time that I have been in this league. However, I know how useful it's been for me to have so many people around the league, the Teddy Jenners, Jake Elliott's, Brad Challengers, Cody Jans, and so many of them, and so many of them are friends of the program that have helped me to get to where I am. And so if I have a little bit of time on Fridays, which I do, and I have carved that out for you, I'm here to help you in whatever way I can, and to help make the fans aware of things that are going on around the league.
Are you ready to get into it?
Of course I am. But let me start, aside from the other things that we're going to get into, because you were talking about the Meta Varsity player countdown, which, by the way, is so cool. And Samson Tan is doing an amazing job with that. And Meta Varsity is an amazing, amazing asset. And it's so cool to see the NLLPA partner with them. In regards to the point system, I do have some information in regards to that. So when we're looking at it, you get 2 points for a goal, 1 point for an assist. And some of these things are obviously going to be in the works a little bit. So these aren't final numbers. These are just some ideas. But then you lose a half a point for a penalty, every penalty minute. And then you lose a quarter of a point for turnovers. So you did pick a little bit on Jeff Teat there. I'm not going to let that go. And so, fantasy wise, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world to go with Jeff, considering the other numbers he puts up if you're only losing 0.25 points per turnover. Just something to keep in mind. But there is a scoring system that's being worked out there, and it's something that they've been working through with the NFL, and also I believe with some college basketball, they've done some trials. And so there are point systems that have worked, and obviously the NLL is a little different, but that's a little sample of what's going to be coming down the pipeline with Meta Varsity.
Well, there you see. I'm glad that you said that, because the 0.25, and since you mentioned the Jeff Teat thing, is maybe I do need to realize that turnovers, I don't want to say they're not a big deal, but maybe they're not as big. Like a basketball game is like a lot worse, I feel like, than NLL might be, maybe. Because I kind of compare the two sports at times.
Well, I think you got to think of it like Jeff Teat. Think about the attention that he garners. I have a piece that I'm coming out with on Austin Madronic, who's a new member of the New York Riptide, coming from the Saskatchewan Rush. And, he was watching a lot of film. He's a very studious guy, and he was noticing that the right side of the floor, the opposite side of Jeff Teat, there's some openings for guys on that right side to do a lot, because Jeff is getting so much attention, and he is, in many people's eyes, the best player on the planet. And if he's not, at his age, he can easily get that title in any day now. So I think that, it makes sense that he's getting a lot of attention. And of course, when you're young and still finding your way, and the Riptide also finding their way, turnovers are bound to happen. So I think that we need to be a little bit easy on Jeff in terms of the turnovers, because he does bring so much more to the table.
The fact that I just looked up his age real quick. I'm like, he'll be 27 in April. I just turned 27. So it's kind of like, it's so cool, like what he's doing. And then, of course, I'm trying to talk about the guy. It's just incredible to me.
Yeah, it's awesome how that happens with athletes. I've realized now that I'm 32 that I'm older than a lot of these guys, and I'm starting starting to realize that, when you talk to rookies coming in the league, it's, I've got kids who are their age. And so
Right.
this is not Preston. Preston's 2. I have
I
2
was
older
gonna say.
kids that are my stepkids, and they're 20 and 18. So they're guys that I talk to, like a Caleb Benedict. These guys 19, 20 years old, and it's pretty. It's surreal.
I mean, 32 is still your athletic prime, so let's be real about that. Like Dane Smith is showing that we're still good.
Yeah.
So NLL top 50, we kind of teased this that you'll be talking about it. I know I've had my thoughts on it. There's been some speculation that maybe the GMs and coaches are in on some little secret plan to get the league more clicks, which I kind of push back on that a little bit. But I know specifically, I've been on the record saying Matt Vince is the best goalie as of right now, despite being 40 something years old. I know Del Bianco's just won the league MVP. Matt Vince won an NLL Cup. What is your take on that aspect of the top 15, just top 15 in general, which I've loved, by the way?
Yeah, it's an amazing initiative, and it's been really cool to work on it. It's been
Yeah.
cool to know who's been in the top 50 for quite some time, and so now to see people's reactions, I knew that there would be some that would definitely,
Right.
get people talking a little bit. And also, I should mention, we haven't seen the forwards list yet. Uh,
Right.
and so there might be some surprises on there for people once they see who is on there and maybe who isn't on there. So there's more to come. But I think that one of the big questions here, and I think that this would have to be asked of the GMs and coaches of the leagues who did participate in this vote, is what was their thought process when they did this? Because, there are many schools of thought when viewing
Right.
lacrosse. There's the eye test. There's the, what does the intangibles that a guy contributes? There's the pure numbers aspect of it. And so, what are you talking about? Are you talking about things that, as I said, the intangibles that you can't really see on the floor? Maybe it's a big locker room guy, something that provides something that we wouldn't know about, and that makes it a little bit tough. Now, I would also push
Right.
back a little bit, and I did actually try when you were doing the defenseman. I messaged you in the little chat there about Rouet just to give you some statistical perspective. Now, I'm not, I love my stats, and I'm never gonna necessarily
Good.
show my hand as to which player or which thing I like the most. Unless I'm asked to do that. But I would just let you know that, while Rouet was in his first year kind of playing in that defensive in transition role, with his offensive background, he was, I'm going to get these numbers wrong probably, but I think he and Courier were the only transition or defenders in all of the National Lacrosse League with 30 plus points, 115 plus loose balls, and 10 plus caused turnovers. Now, I know that if you're looking at a defenseman, you would want to see a lot of maybe a few more loose balls, definitely more caused turnovers, more block shots, maybe. But in a more transition role, you do want some more points. And I think that talking to Coach Williams throughout last season and the other coaches and some of his teammates, they were really happy with his performance last year. And it's for him to do it in such a different role, I thought was really great. So, I also think that it's interesting to not see Robert Hope on that list of 15 there. That was a bit shocking. The guy who's pretty much been the focal point of that Mammoth defense for quite some time and is a
Yeah.
big reason why they won the championship in 2022, being in front of Dylan Ward, one of the greatest goaltenders of our time. So, he obviously got left off the list, and I think that bothered a bunch of people. It was definitely a bit shocking there. Face-offs. Also, I should mention that it's interesting to note. So when you look at those lists, some things change. So Eli Gobricht, for example, I believe he recently broke his arm. So, and
Oh.
literally got surgery on it, I think about a week ago or something like that.
Mm.
So while he's on that list, don't expect to see much of him because he's recovering from a pretty significant
Yeah.
injury. And another one is that Brandon Cleland, who was number 5 on the face-offs, he has started to become a fireman, and there's something, I don't know the exact rules. This is maybe something for a Jake Elliott or a Teddy Jenner or someone like that, but he has a 1-year probation. It's basically these guys, they don't play lacrosse for that year when they start being a firefighter. And so don't expect to see much of him either this season. That also then begs the question, who's going to be taking the draws for the Desert Dogs? That's something that they'll have to figure out throughout the year. And then I would just say, and I put this out on Twitter, is that, you look at a guy like, and this goes back to the stats, what are you looking at? Are you looking at pure face-off win percentage numbers? Because if you are, sure, it's an interesting list. But then I would say maybe where was Tim Edwards? He won 61% of his draws, but he was out west. Now we don't have conferences anymore, but if you look at it, you have to look at what we had last year and in the years past, and you had a guy like Max Adler, who for Buffalo, and this was literally his first full NLL season, and he upped his faceoff percentage by more than 11 percentage points, and he had to face Trevor Baptiste, T.D. Erlin, Jake Withers, and he even faced Joe Nardella before Nardella had his injury. So he faced those guys, I think it was 9 or 10 times throughout the year. That's more than 50%. And those are the best face-off guys in the business. And he still had over 50%. So, it's how do you look at what they can contribute? Are you also including their defense? Are you including how they might play in transition? What is the way that each coach and GM is analyzing the player?
Great point. See, because I'm a context guy. I've tried to tell people that before. Like, I'm like always a big picture. I don't just immediately react to something, even though it seems like I do. And I like that you mentioned each just like coach and GM, very different thought process. Some, like you said, some guys are analytics. Some guys are just flat out playbook guys. Like, does he get to his spots correctly? And I'm not a playbook guy at all. I'm more of an eye test guy. I'm sure everyone can tell that. But I do love that you provide that perspective because it's a great point. Like, if there was one criteria, we might be able to all agree on something, but that's the beauty of it. It's not.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that, that's something that, it's important when people hear you say that, because you are coming from a place. And I think that you do, again, mention that, you're not, that you are a newer fan to the league. So you are analyzing it from the only perspective that you know how, and that's from watching this game. And really and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're doing it kind of as a fan on your own. You haven't been, I hate to use this word, but groomed or trained in a sense by these NLL people to be like, hey, this is how it's been, or you played or whatever. So it's a very interesting take. And I think, of course, people also need to keep that in mind if they're, really taking you. And again, I mean, no offense by this, but taking you as seriously as they do. Yeah. You are just a fan who has a very strong opinion about things. And I think it's amazing to see fans have those strong opinions about things. It's really important. It's really important.
I think I may look at it from a perspective like NBA and NFL too. Like, it's so player oriented. Lacrosse is one of those team games. Like, there's some star players, but I'm looking at it from like the star player perspective sometimes. So I'm like noticing things like, oh wow, that's like you said, a lot of turnovers by GFT. But as more and more I'm understanding, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to know what turnovers do and why they're happening and stuff like that. It'll come.
Yeah, and you just keep watching as many games, and that's the beauty of the partnership with ESPN and TSN is that you have this availability to watch as many games as you have the time for. And if you're really committed, which clearly you are by doing the only daily show here that's on video, so I think that you're ready to go and ready to keep learning. And it's exciting to see the changes that are happening in season 2.
Let's transition to this now. Kieran McArdle. Big news that came out was that I'll suppose this way. What he's announced that I've seen, I don't know if he's announced his PLL yet, but all I know is he announced that he's not doing the box lacrosse thing on his Instagram page. But we basically know it's the PLL from here on out. I know money's got to be a thing. What is your thoughts on that? Because I can't knock a guy for wanting money, because I feel like in the short term it might be PLL if you want some extra dollars, if someone's going to throw that at you. What is your take on whether it's Albany being not great, or whether it just be he enjoys field? Like, what is your take on Kieran McArdle and just in general?
Well, I think that Kieran's a great player and a great guy, and I think that the thing that I learn most and focus most when I'm talking to players and getting to know players is, who are they as people, not necessarily just who they are as lacrosse players, because who they are as people can often give us an indication of how they're going to play on the floor.
Yeah.
You don't normally have guys who are really who are big jerks off the floor, and then they're the biggest team guy when they're in the locker room, or they're the giving out the most assists when they're on the floor. So I think that Kieran is a really great guy, but I think that the thing that you have to keep in context again is that he's a guy from Long Island. He also is he's a married guy and has a young daughter. And
Hmm.
one thing that is so important to so many of these guys, who we have to remember, as much as they are high performance athletes, a lot of them have full-time jobs, a lot of them have families and many other commitments. It's not like another professional sports league. And so if
Yeah.
you're a young guy in your early 30s like Kieran is, and you're not, and you want to be closer to home, or you want to play the game that's more familiar to you, which is these are all things that you have to keep in mind in terms of why someone would make a decision. And when it all comes together, sure, I'm sure Paul is wanting to pay the guys that he really likes and thinks can be very marketable for the PLL a great amount of money. And if he can do that, great for him. But if you're a guy who's from the States, and you know how to play field, and you're very good at that, and that's kind of your forte, you're probably more inclined anyway to play in the PLL. And talking to guys like Blaze Reardon and Trevor Baptiste, who do both leagues, and then they also
Yep.
do camps and all these things, they're not shy to admit how exhausted they are. They love lacrosse and they love playing it as much as they can, but they are very clearly like, man, it's a lot. Like, it is a lot to do
Hmm.
that. So if you can do that, and be with your family more and stick to one league, and also make a nice paycheck, I think that's really important. I would also say, on the flip side, we have seen some retirements and things like that from the PLL, of guys that still have years on their contract that are still playing in the NLL.
Right.
And so that happens as well. And so guys just make that decision. I remember, oh, I'm blanking on who it was. It was a Georgia Swarm guy now. Yeah, I'm going to forget his name. But anyway, it was someone who had retired, I think, at the beginning of the beginning of this summer. And I had spoken to him about it. And, he had been in, I think it was John Rannigan. I think that's who it was.
Okay.
And he had said that, he hadn't spent uh, a summer with his family in about 10
Mm.
years because
Oh,
because of his lacrosse commitments. Now, I hope it's John Rand. I hope I got that right.
yeah.
But yeah, that's a huge thing. And if you're playing in the NLL as well, like, and you have a family, like, that's a big sacrifice. I have a wife, and Preston, and thank like our two other kids are off on their own now. They're old enough to be doing that, but like, it's important to be around your family, and I tailor my schedule and my life to be around them as much as possible, and for them to be around me as much as possible. And that's why I
Mhm.
moved to New York City, to be around my parents, and when they're getting older. So family is important, and it's a huge part of these guys' lives. It's why Lyle Thompson decided to play for Six Nations, and to
Yep.
be there. And I spoke to him, and it was really emotional for him to talk about
Mm.
how much time he got to spend with his family. It just, it's priorities, and often the priorities, I think, are not the priorities that we in the media want them to be. Oh, the PLL
Yeah.
is so much better, the NLL is so much better, oh, that paycheck's so good. I think that real life just hits sometimes, and I think that
Yeah.
that probably had a big part to do with Kieran's decision.
Yeah. And not the Kieran's the firefighter, but like you mentioned, like the firefighter thing, like it's sad. Like even if it does come down to money, in a perfect world, each league would get paid fairly, and how much people watch them, it would be great. But it's not the case right now. And so, like you said, if you have a young daughter in your early 30s, which in real life is still still a young guy trying to make
Mhm.
life happen, it's hard.
Mhm.
And I mean, of course, from fan perspective, why not Albany? What? Come on, we'll live on. We can still enjoy his game anyways.
And I would also say, speaking to Glenn Clark on this issue, they're excited for the future. The Dyson Williams, the Kurtz, and all of these young guys coming in. I mean, I think I was looking at their defense, and like everyone is in their mid-20s. Like it's really like a really young team, and they're excited to be fast. They're exciting. They're ready to be exciting on the floor. They're really pumped up for the future, and who knows what's going to happen in the future, with this team, and the way that things are kind of set up with I guess the roster and everything like that. But when you got a piece like Dyson Williams, I mean, it's really like bringing in the next Jeff Teat. And if you have the pieces around him to build upon, and they're all really young, and then you get a couple of veterans in there, you got a good team. So, it might be a little bit of a learning curve this year, which is very expected in a team going through a rebuild, but it's how do you put the pieces together for the future? And I think that there's a lot of positive pieces there for Albany.
I was going to ask you, like, was that one of your surprise teams? But I feel like you kind of pushed back on that in the end just a little bit.
It is not one of my surprise teams. It's more my surprise teams. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, and it's actually a lot based on your NLL standings, you and producer Joe. So just to again give more kind of a different perspective.
Well, I'm ready. I'm ready for it right now. If you are.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, so I think that it's I would love to see. Well, let me just say that Vancouver, Joe, I'm looking right here. Joe has Vancouver finishing 12th, and you had Vancouver finishing 13th. Now, I would ask you, now offensively, they have some pieces that aren't going to be there this year, but next year, it was, if you look at, I don't have it right in front of me, but they had 3 first-round draft picks, 2 of them in the top 10, and 2 were some of the biggest offensive studs in college right now, and that's a huge part. Those are going to be huge pieces to the offense going forward. So that was something that Coach Malosky really wanted to focus on there, and he couldn't pass on the guys that he chose. So that was really important to him. What I would also say is that it was clear, based on all the moves, that defense and veteran leadership were key to when you bring back Matt Beers, when you get Ryan Dilks, when you get John Lintz, you've got young pieces in rebowering, and then you got a new defensive stud in Owen Grant, which Coach Malosky really likes. And then you have Aaron Bolden-Net, and I know that he is on the older side. I get it, but if you've been around him for any time, and I have, and I've spoken to him, he is not only very passionate about the game still, but he's very dedicated to his body and his performance. I mean, he runs a gym, so you would kind of expect that from him. But he looks like a big truck. He's just built like a machine. And he's very passionate about the game. And if you see the progression of the team during the preseason, with a veteran and talented and big, a lot of those guys that I mentioned, they're big. They're 6'3", 200 pounds. And then you got a big goalie as well who has championship pedigree. I'm not saying the Warriors are going to win the championship. I'm not saying that, but defense wins championships, but also defense helps win games. And so, you got Tyrell Hammer Jackson who's there and can win a bunch of draws. But if that doesn't work out, you've got Chris Willman now, which Coach Malosky brought in from Calgary when he was there.
Okay.
And then, and who was great at the face-off with Calgary. Now, I would also just say that when you have a coach like Coach Malosky, he didn't win Coach of the Year for no reason. Right. He's a guy that not only is one of the most respected guys by the players in terms of any guy who plays for him, they love him. Former players who haven't played for him for years still communicate with him. They have great friendships because that's very important. Bonds and trusts and all of those things are really important. And he instills that in his clubs, and not only between him and the players, but between all the players. And that can really bring out something really special in a team. And you saw that in Calgary. And then, the other thing is that when you do look at in-game adjustments, he's often credited as being one of the best at those. And so when he sees all these pieces coming together for the first time, it might take a few games, but this team, he's going to know what works, what doesn't work, and he's going to make things work for his team. And so I think that they'll do better than 13th or 12th. I think that he's not going to allow that team in his first year
Right.
with so much pressure on him to finish 12th or 13th in the league. I think he has too much respect for himself and too much respect for the guys that he brings into his clubs to finish 12th and 13th in the league. So I think that they'll at least be vying for a playoff spot. That's what I believe. I think that they have enough
Ooh.
talent on there, and I think that with his mentorship and leadership and bringing those guys together, I think that there's more than enough there to be a playoff contender. And I would also say the same, although producer Joe had them at 10, I would say Saskatchewan is another team that
You
is
did
going.
tweet about them.
Yeah, and they're a team, speaking with Coach Quinlan and some of the staff out there, they're young, athletic, and also GM Keenan, who is now making all these changes to the team. They want to be young, athletic, strong, kind of like they were 10 years ago when they did have
Mm-hmm.
this run, and they were so successful in the mid 2010s. They want to bring that back, and they have so many of the pieces to do that. And then when you bring in a goalie, and I know that people can say in the postseason, Frank Scigliano is not necessarily the guy that you would be like your first choice to have in between the pipes. And I think that he hopefully wins a championship sometime in his career. But during the regular season, particularly during his stretch with San Diego, his numbers were consistently some of the best in his career. And after a slow start, after Chris Origlieri came in to support him after a rough start, Scigliano was great. That second half of the season, arguably one of the
Yeah.
best goaltenders in the National Lacrosse League. So I think with him, if he can continue that in Saskatchewan and then build off of that, and, with a very strong, athletic, fast defense in front of him, I think that he can also provide a lot of success for them. So I could see them in a position much like Vancouver vying for a playoff spot because of the type of team that they have. Now, it might not be the year for that because there's
Right.
so many new pieces, but it's with the potential that they have with the pieces that they have, I think that it's something that shouldn't be poo-pooed because the talent that they have on that roster is definitely impressive.
I remember you mentioned Tyrell Hammer Jackson. I've been on the record that Butch LaRue was a tough name to lose in the NLL. Producer Joe comments Tyrell Hammer Jackson's a better name than Butch LaRue. So there you go on that.
Yeah.
I do like in terms of like the Kermalozzi thing, obviously he knows what he's doing. I remember when I had Callum Crawford on after the Panther City lost to them, and he was like, they're so well coached. Like you could hear in his voice, like, oh my gosh, it's hard to beat. So that was big that you said that. Maybe the rookies do contribute a bunch. Like you said, that could be a big deal for them. As for the rush, I do like that Derek Keenan said after the season last year, like, trust me one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they even changed their logo for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Like he's like, just give me a chance here to do it one more time. Is there anybody in our top 8, well, that you've seen so far that you would push back or you think are a pretty good spot? I think you like the Rock a lot, right?
I do. Obviously, the Rock are a very complete team. Their assets, Nick Rose in net, for many people was the goaltender of the year. Still, really very capable. And think about how much he's also just achieved in his National Lacrosse League career. He's due for a championship, and he's
Yeah.
hungry for one. And you know that a lot of guys that have been around this club, and there's a lot of core guys, which with as much movement as there has been, there's a bunch of guys that have been there for a little bit, and you see the progression of it's unfortunate, and I think this is going to be the biggest piece: is how do they adapt without Latrell Harris, because he was dynamic.
Oh.
It's really unfortunate to see him go down with an injury and to be out for the season. This is what happens when guys play 2 leagues. It's something that, with what hurts one league can, really stings. So how does that affect the transition game? Now, when you bring in a guy like Mark Matthews again, who hasn't slowed down yet, and he has all the weapons that he has up front, like, how does that slow down? But that defense in front of them, Nick Rose, they're I mentioned it earlier, defense wins championships, all those things. I think that they're going to be really impressive yet again. I don't see them slowing down. It'll be interesting to seeing Rochester at number 3 for producer Joe. That is, I mean,
Up there.
I hope that team keeps winning and keeps building off of what they did last year. It's going to be very interesting to see without Holden Katoni how they do and how that fits in. And also, I like Connor Fields so much. I think he's an amazing person. I've talked to him both professionally and personally, and I love that he has a great, happy life, and I want him to succeed. Can he continue to do what he did last year is a reasonable question. I'm not saying he can't, especially without a guy like Holden Katoni, who might take a bunch of those goals. But, at the level he produced, I mean, that doesn't happen every year in the NLL, even if you are the Dane Smiths or the Tom Schreibers or guys like that. Can Connor Fields be that guy? I wrote feature pieces on him at the beginning of the season, and he really did have a chip on his shoulder, and he proved it. So, does that chip still exist? And how much does he want to continue? How much did it motivate him? Did it prove to himself that he's capable to do what he did?
He shot 25% with the goals that he scored. I'm a shooting percentage guy for now, and that was pretty impressive because it was definitely like one of the best.
Yeah.
So incredible. Well, Adam, I would talk to you all day if we could, man. Every Friday should work, though. This should definitely work because I feel like we're going to have plenty of topics to get to, plenty of games to break down and react to. I do appreciate this partnership with you, and I can't wait for the season, man. We are a week away. I'm so excited.
Yeah, 3 games next Friday. Very exciting stuff. Definitely, I'm gonna have a lot of information for you if I can. It's gonna be a busy week, as every week is always very busy. But coaches are very excited. A couple of teams are doing some final scrimmages before the season starts. Calgary going up to Moose Jaw. I know the people of Moose Jaw are very excited to host a game there and to see the Rush and the Roughnecks play in a preseason game. Teams are still vying for spots, and next week you'll see the final rosters have to come in. So that'll be something very, very interesting for your show next week to see who made the cut, who didn't make the cut. There's some teams that have to cut quite a few guys. Other teams where it's pretty clear what's going to happen. So definitely stay tuned for that. And it's going to be a really exciting week, and also excited to see your reactions to the forwards of the NLL Top 50.
Also, I got breaking news here. Since you mentioned the Rush game in Moose Jaw, I've been told that the Rush and Moose and Calgary game will be broadcast on YouTube. So that should be a fun little thing. I heard it was going to be sold out. I'm excited.
Yeah, and that's been awesome. We had so much of these talks during the summer with junior games. Do you stream it? Do you have people pay for them? Obviously, more free lacrosse, the better. People want to see lacrosse, and maybe it doesn't make sense to be paying $100 for 5 games for a bunch of people, especially with inflation and the way things are these days. I can understand very much people's anger with some of the prices that were coming in. But also I understand that things are a business. But if there's free lacrosse, definitely go check it out. It's awesome that teams are doing that. Really cool that this is becoming a thing. We need to do more streaming, more free streaming shows like yours. And it's very cool to see that.
And we won't, I think we asked people to subscribe. That'd be kind of evil. But I appreciate you, Adam, again. Producer Joseph's going to absolutely need Adam Levy's rankings. It's bad.
Yeah, I can do that for you.
Well, here you go. Again, appreciate you. I don't want to take any more of your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir, and enjoy your weekend if you can.
Yeah, of course I will. I'll be doing a lot of lacrosse work, finishing a lot of work. So, no days off, right, Mike? That's your philosophy as well.
Never. Can't do it.
Perfect.
So I'll say goodbye to you, and we'll take a break on the other side. Thank you so much, Adam, once again.
Thanks, Mike.
Friday, November 24th, 2023. You are watching the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show in the world. This is Daily Dive, as always. And if you guys were wondering, if you missed the beginning of that, Adam Levy will be on every Friday on this show this season 2, helping us break down our games on Fridays. And we'll have more information for the Friday shows coming up as well. But just know he's here and I'm ready for it. The breaking news I mentioned to you guys were the fact the Rush and the Roughnecks will be broadcasted on YouTube from Moose Jaw. That should be fun. That game probably will be sold out from what we're hearing, so cannot wait for that. While you're here, Daily Dive Lax on social media. Check out the link tree in the description below or in the social media bios, wherever you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter, whatever. Check it out. You're going to see the Fanatics affiliate link. And it is Black Friday, technically. It's kind of like Blue Friday at this point. But yeah, 30% off site-wide on Fanatics. The fact the NLL was advertising that makes me wonder if NLL Authentics will be on the website soon. I kind of tried to get some information from them on that on Twitter. We'll see if they responded. They have not yet, so there you go. But yeah, I love the fact this is happening. That the NLL is getting broadcast. I love the fact that we got Fanatics embracing the brand here. So check out the stuff on our link tree. Enjoy the season as it starts. Next week. All right, Georgia Swarm preview and blind standings reveal. Boom. I always can do that. You'll see the newest team is the Georgia Swarm. I've got the Swarm making the playoffs at number 7 with a motivated Lyle Thompson after he missed the PLL and then decided to win a Man Cup with Six Nations. They did sign Jerome Thompson, and now all 4 Thompson brothers, Jerome, Miles, Lyle, and Jeremy, are on the Georgia Swarm this season. That should be incredible. And we know last season, I believe it was Miles who missed it with an injury. Might have been Jeremy. I forgot which one. But that should be fun. They re-signed TJ Camizzo. They got Jerry Stotts back for 2 more years. Shane Jackson, the little engine that could, is amazing. I saw him in person. He was great. And Brett Dobson, of course, for 4 more seasons. It is interesting. I don't know if this is like financial reasons or just maybe like a little bit of a feeling out process. Jerome Thompson, Miles Thompson, and Jeremy Thompson are here for a year. Lyle re-signed for a 3-year deal. Was that because he's Lyle Thompson? You have to wonder if they're trying to like win a championship this year and see what happens after that. So I think that's a very interesting concept. Again, producer Joe has him at number 9. I got him at number 7. So he's got him missing the playoffs, which means Colorado is probably the odd team out. Odd team out for me and odd team in for him. But you got that. Head coach Ed Cuomo is just, people respect the man so much. They love playing for him. You see numerous player polls, and they're all about that stuff. Also, Brett Dobson, like I said, they re-signed him for 4 years. He's only going to get better. This is his 2nd year. He just held like a 77.5% save percentage last season. He's only 23, won't be 24 till April. That's a big deal. Just won the PLL championship with the Archers. Dude's a beast. And if he can be as consistent as he was towards the last half of the season, the Swarm could be very, very good. I got him, like I said, number 7 in a unified standings where everybody plays everybody and there's no cheap games anymore, if you will, like with the Albanys of the world. So I'm excited for this NLL season. Like I said, again, Swarm will make my playoffs. Producer Joe says no. We'll see who's right at the end of the year. But this has been such a fun show. We have gone for 45 minutes, which is awesome. Adam Levy and myself every Friday moving forward. This will be great stuff. Maybe we got some more announcements soon. You may want to check that out. Oh, and by the way, how about some more breaking news? 12-Ounce Sports will host Daily Dive coming December 1st. So we will be streamed on that very soon. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube still, but pretty soon we'll be on our YouTube and their Twitter accounts. So if you're watching on social media, they want to make a slight adjustment there. But yeah, check. I cannot wait for all of that. This has been the show. It's Daily Stinking Dive. For everyone that watches the show, you are amazing. You are the bread. You are the butter. You are the Coca to my cola. I'm thirsty now. For everyone that is behind the scenes, thank you for the street cred in the NLL. For producer Joe, what's up, dude? I'm your host, Mark Carvelis. As always, enjoy your weekend. See you tomorrow. It's NLL opening week next week on Daily Dive. We'll see you next time. Same place. Adios.